So, in this recording, I want to lay out some of my, I don't know, internal sides, thoughts related to. I'll start from the idea of the Noah's Ark and the myth of the Noah's Ark. Because I have almost like a completely different view on what we are being told there. And well, of course, it's like when I say I refer to this internal side, that I do not create. It's just like it appears to be just like the truth, maybe, of what's actually going on. So I think that this myth, similar to some other extremely significant myths, can have various, let's say, ways in which they can be viewed. There are at least 2-3 perspectives which are kind of valid. That's the thing with me, it's just like there can be several interpretations, but it's not interpretations. There can be several meanings, that there are also equally true. But let me refer to just this myth of, the Noah's Ark, because I feel there's something very, very wicked about it. It's just literally, I can't believe that, people which call themselves Christians, they actually buy into this stuff, and they actually look at that story of the Noah's Ark almost like in a positive light. I mean, specifically what happened to Noah itself and its ark, and how God, let's say, it is said that it helped Noah and its family and, preserve the things on earth before it destroyed everything. It's just unbelievable to me that people don't revolt even when they hear this myth. And I'm not only here to criticize, let's say, this so-called God which did all of this, but I'm here to criticize Noah as well. Like, I don't see a drop of true humanity and true human care and empathy and even morality to this figure called Noah. Like, who would even do that? Like literally imagine you would be in a society which, let's just take, let's say, the Bible's word, right, for granted. And let's just imagine that it was true that that entire society was filled with depraved individuals, right? And there was corruption, denaturation, and depravity, if this is a word even. Right? So let's just let's just take the word of the Bible, let's say, right? And let's just imagine that that word was indeed depraved, right? And there were just few human beings which were still more just, more correct, more moral, ethical and caring and so on, right? And let's just imagine that this God saw the depravity, let's say the degeneration of that word, and said, like, I can't take it anymore. I can't put up with this anymore. Oh, by the way, it poses so many questions, right? It's just, for me, it's just even since I was a child, and I was hearing all these stories because I grew up in a family which was Orthodox Christian, right? And I was hearing all these stories from my family, of course. But it's just many times I remember I would see so many details that didn't add up, you know. In my mind, it didn't make sense. And even now, you know, it's just, even if we go a bit back and we think like, okay, if you're a god, right? A god of a world, how come your creation can become degenerated and disturbed? And how come? Okay, let's just say that somehow that can happen. Although in my mind, it's just I can't even begin to understand how would that even be possible. How can you create a thing and then that thing can what? Can become corrupted? I just don't understand. Didn't you created it right from the first time? Have you allowed, I don't know, imperfections in it? The nature of a creation reflects its creator, right? It's just so intuitive, right? So if a creation can be degenerated, well, you yourself, the creator of that creation, must be imperfect or have some level of degeneracy to yourself. It's just completely obvious to me. So that's an issue on itself, you know, just to think of the nature of this God, right? That would see its creation becoming degenerated. Well, that God in and of itself must have, as I said, a level of degeneracy to itself, right? It's just intuitive, it's just common sense. You know, the seed doesn't fall far from the tree and all of this stuff, right? All right, so that's a problem, which just shows us there's something awkward there, you know, it just can't be. But the second problem, okay, let's just go with it. Let's just ignore there is a problem. Or just move on, let's say, or just keep it in mind, but just move on with the contemplation, let's say. But okay, let's just say, right? Let's just say you just happened to be the creator of a creation which just happened to become degenerated without your will, apparently, because you're upset, right? So if you're upset, means that that thing happened without you wanting that, right? So you didn't expect that degeneracy apparently to happen. Okay, let's just go with it. Although it doesn't make much sense, but let's just go with it. But then, okay, what do you do when you see a degeneracy of your own creation happening? How do you react? How do you act in that situation, right? Oh, what? Do you go and you kill everything that you created? It's just like creating children, okay, making children, seeing that your children started doing drugs or whatnot, and what do you go with a shotgun and you finish them off? It's just it just doesn't make any sense. See, it continues. It's just problem after problem. It just doesn't make sense. So why, if you are a creator of that creation, of that society, of those people, why, if, let's just go with the argument, let's just go with the myth, the story, that you see them being degenerated without your will, right? Why is your method of correcting that mistaken behaviors in your creation, that degeneracy, why is your go-to method killing, murder, and destruction to solve that problem, right? That situation. Why not? I don't know. Anything else. Just you could try a plethora of other options to instill sense again in those people. Lead by example. create, I don't know, universities, education, just create a school education. Since you're a creator, right, and you can create whatever, let's say, you want, whatever let's say the heck you want, then why not create just this beautiful, shiny university? And since you're the creator and apparently you have the power to create an entire flood and bring it to the people, so you have some power, why not make the people go to that university or something like that, you know? In that university, you would teach them about the right things to do, about morality, about ethics, about anyway these good qualities, right? You would help them come back to their senses. You would help them, you would show them the right path, you know? Maybe you would pick some amongst them and you would make teachers and they would lead by example and they would, let's say, turn around your flock, right? Towards the goodness. Why solve that problem of degeneracy with murder, genocide, violence, killing everybody, which didn't listen to me? When I begged them to change, they didn't listen, so there you go. The wrath of God. Oh my goodness. It's just obvious. It's just obvious there. If this would be the case, that would be a freaking degenerated God, probably more degenerated than the people themselves, which got degenerated. But here's my idea on all of this. It's just, I disbelieve this is the truth of what happened. It just that doesn't make sense, as I've tried to portray a bit here. There are too many problems, ethical, common sense one, logical, I don't know. It just it doesn't make sense. If you're an all-powerful creator, again, why do you have to turn to violence and destruction? To straighten up or correct a thing here and there in your creation. If you're so all-powerful, if you're the creator, but I believe something else was happening. First of all, I'm deeply questioning the entire story. I'm deeply questioning that those people got degenerated in the first place. So I'm questioning that. Although, you know, I have a flaw here in my own perception, because if we look at this society, we can see a lot of degeneration. So a lot of degeneration can indeed happen. But I'm still looking at this thing that I think that no, I think I don't know. I mean, I'm just I have an internal sensation that it might just be very possible that that society was not that degenerated, you know. Maybe it wasn't degenerated at all. Because that's my internal sense. This is what it is showing me. It is showing me that maybe that society was actually a very good one. Maybe there was just a very good society, very advanced in many ways. And there is this psychopathic god or creature or force or being which comes upon them and destroys their world. And then fabulates or makes up this story of why it destroyed them. And after the fact, right, the winner, you know, writes history, something like that. No? The history is written by the victor or something like this, the winner. So after the fact, after it destroyed everybody, maybe it created this story that, oh, they were some your ancestors, it's just they were a bunch of degenerates. Oh, I had to just wipe them out. I couldn't make sense. I couldn't understand myself with them. They wouldn't listen. So I just brought my wrath, right, upon them. I flooded those bastards, right? I flooded them. Yeah, because they wouldn't listen. So no, I think it's more probable that this happened in the days of Noah, right? So you had this very advanced civilization, probably living very ethically, very morally, very in tune with the earth, the cosmos. And then you had this invader force coming and just wiping everything out, wiping that entire civilization in order to use this land here for its own purposes. It just makes so much sense. Floods everything, kills all the life forms there, saves some in order to control them, manipulate them, and order them to do whatever. If you want to survive on this land after the flood, you will do God's word, right? Basically brainwashing them to do whatever this beast wanted, and killed everybody else which wouldn't comply. You're right? It's just makes so much more sense to me that this would be the actual thing that actually happened. So now we have let's get to the idea of Noah itself. Who is this guy? Or even if it existed or not. But let's just take the guy from the myth, even we don't let's not necessarily concern ourselves with if the myth was actually historic or not, if the guy existed or not. Let's just take the story from the myth and just analyze just the story. So who is this freaking guy or family? But I'll just look at him, right? Because he was the leader, right, of the family. Now let's take Noah into consideration and see the degeneracy in this being, which actually survived the flood. Now imagine you are in a society. Let's just go with the story, with the official story, right? Now imagine you are in a society of people, your fellow humankind, right? Your fellow humankind, right? You have families, so you have cousins, you have anybody else which is just like you, right? Just a human being. And then you have the animals everywhere. You can see how much you feel for the animals. Any true human being naturally feels empathy towards animals, towards nature, towards the birds, towards its other fellow humankind. We feel natural empathy, and any true human being feels empathy towards its kind and towards, I would say, everything on earth. So what's up with this Noah? So imagine this person, right, receives a message from God, from this God, let's say, which tells Noah, dude, I'm sorry, man. It's just your kind is degenerated. Yeah, I will just wipe everything out. Yeah, I'll send the flood. But because you were kind of like more, let's say, straight to my word. You kept to my word. You kept to my laws and so on. I'll spare you and your family. So get prepared, build that ark, make it this size, whatever. The flood is going to come in that time or that, so be prepared, right? Have the ark there, put the seed of, I don't know, whatever animals, trees there in the ark, and be prepared because we are going to basically wipe everything out, right? Just kill these bastards, so called, right? And what does Noah do, right? This guy from the myth. Well, Noah goes like, oh yes, Lord. Oh, I'm a bit sad. Yeah, I'm a bit sad, but yep, sure. I'll just go, I'll build the ark, and I'll save myself and my family and some trees and animals here and there. But yep, well, I am your servant, Lord. I'll just do whatever you command. Just imagine that person. Just the lack of true morals, the lack of true empathy, the lack of true care for its other humankinds, leaving everybody else behind to freaking die. Die and save oneself, one's family, and some bunch of trees and animals and whatnot, thinking you're doing humanity a freaking service. Or you're doing God the great service, right? For being its faithful servant, right? Like, who would even behave like that? Just, if you come today, if God, let's say, comes today and tells you, man, you have to leave behind your family, you have to leave behind everything, just gather these things that I'm telling you here, put them on that boat, and everybody else you will die, you'll be saved, and your this family here, but all other relatives and everything, they will die. They are just too degenerated, right? So be prepared. What would you do? So just because for me, if somebody would come with such a proposal, I would spit on it. Yeah, I would just spit on the head of whoever comes with that proposal. I would say like, man, I'm dying here with my people, I'm never leaving them. I'm never leaving them behind, So if I'm your last resort, if I'm the only one that can carry your genes and whatnot to the next civilization, well, you either spare all of them and you think of something else, another solution, or we will die together. I'll die with them. No freaking way. I'm leaving my brothers, my sisters, my, planet or whatnot, my trees, my animals, anything behind. I'm not leaving even just a square inch of anything behind. No, I'm not an abandoner. I'm not a traitor of my kind. But apparently in history or in this mythology, we are dealing with one of these traitors, right? What does Noah do? Well, maybe I haven't read the scripture there, but maybe he feels a bit sorry, maybe he has some ethical concerns. I don't know because I haven't read. But does this individual go with God's plan? Yep, he does. Does he save himself, let's say his own ass, let's say, and leaving everybody else behind to die? Yep. He did it apparently, at least in the myth, right? So there you go. Where's the love? Where's the care? Where's the ethics? Where's the morality in that person, which was able to leave behind knowingly, right? Because it knew all the others will die, and it actually was able to do it. To leave behind all its other humankind. It doesn't even matter how degenerated they are. Do you leave them behind? That's the question then. Imagine that this being was even, hypothetically, right? Hypothetically now, was even probably 1 or 2 days before, was talking to people which knew you're gonna freaking be dead in 2 days from now, you're gonna drown together with all your family. But that individual called Noah, hypothetically, let's just take this imaginative situation where it was just staying there, talking to them, looking them in the eyes, knowing what's going to happen to them in a short while. Oh my God, the psychopathy there. It's just unbelievable. And this is the guy that survived. This is the gene that freaking survived. It's just freaking psychopathy. Traitor. Betrayal. abandonment of its fellow humankind, leaving everybody else to suffer and die, saving himself and his family because God ordered it. This is the gene that freaking survived. Oh my God. So it's obvious to me that the picture becomes clear, right? It's just we are dealing with a degenerated God, let's say, which is no God at all, of course. It's just a degenerated being which decides to save a fellow degenerate. It's just so obvious to me. It's just decided to save the one which obeyed its degenerated law and was more, let's say, straight in God's eyes according to its degenerated law. So if you obey this degenerated law, this degenerated God will save you because it saves its own kind. And then it wiped out all the other human beings which probably didn't want it to adhere to its degenerated law. And in the eyes of this degenerated God, the ones which were actually true, moral, ethical, caring, and loving beings, they were seen as degenerates. Because when you are evil, you see goodness as being your enemy. When you are evil and you want to impose the law of evil over a certain land, you see anybody which doesn't comply with that evil law as enemies, as degenerates. So it's easy to call goodness degenerated, because in your eyes that's what they are. So the winner writes the history, right? So this degenerated God just wrote the Bible or wrote whatever myth and called this previous society, this previous civilization degenerate, but that civilization might not have been degenerated in truth. They might have been truly, as I said, moral, caring, advanced, spiritually pure and spiritually advanced type of beings, which just refused to obey these degenerated laws of this degenerated God, and thus they were wiped out. To me, this version of the myth makes much more sense, and it makes an internal sense. It's just, I can sense that internal sense of truth and coherence to this meaning and to this explanation. And there are, as I said, many portions of this entire story that don't add up. As I said, the cruelty of this God that decides to deal with a problem by genociding everybody, genocide, murder, violence. That's its way to deal with a problem. And, that's your way of strengthening your children, your creation. This is how you behave with your family, basically. Just completely doesn't make any ounce of sense to me. And objectively, I think it doesn't make any ounce of sense. But again, to circle back to where I was, to what I was saying in the beginning, and I'll close this now, is that just imagine these folks. It's just, to me, I'm continued to be baffled to look at these Christian folks, which look at this myth and they just go with it, without seeing these obvious things, these obvious issues that I've just laid out, right? But they are extremely obvious. So how come this, to me, I mean, and so how come these Christians don't come up with these questions and don't pose to themselves, these questions. How come they don't stumble on these problems? And how come they even cherish? I can see how most of these Christians actually cherish the destruction that God brought upon humanity, because humanity apparently was again fallen, was apparently degenerated. I can see how most of these Christians are actually agree. If I think, I'm wondering, if, how would it be, for example, let's just take this example, right? That, let's say, the one of these head leaders of our world right now, let's just take the president of the US, right? Because it's just like the main figure right now, right? How about this person, the president of US at this moment in 2026, June 26, when I'm recording this, let's just say this president would make a statement, oh, this world is just too degenerated, we can't straighten up these people, we have to just bomb everything and destroy everything. And there will be some that they will survive, which are agreeing with our law. What would you think about that? Would you go with the proposal of this US president? Would you allow everybody else to be bombed right now? It's actually a hypothetical situation for our condition right now. Would you allow absolutely everybody around you to be called a degenerate, even if you see some people, let's say, some departing from what is objectively departing from morality and ethics and so on, right? You see that they are not maybe the most moral, the most ethical, the most caring. But think practically right now. Let's just say that the president of this US country, country, let's say, would make this proposal. Would you be ready to allow everybody else around you right now to be bombed, to be killed? And would you embark yourself, if there would be a ship, if there would be a way, if there would be, let's say, one of these arcs, would you go there and save yourself on the premises that you have to agree with the law of this US president and its view upon what goodness is? And what the right way of living is, according to its perception, its model of the world, its mind? Would you follow this US president right now? And would you allow all others to die if this person, this individual, would want to kill everybody? That's exactly very similar to the situation that Noah, let's say, was faced with. And he said yes. And he followed the degenerated leader. And he was spared, apparently. So to me, when I look at these Christian folks, I just feel baffled. I don't think they themselves understand the magnitude or the implications of what they are agreeing with. I think they are just too caught up in the philosophical explanation of that myth and many other from the Bible, that they don't analyze it from a practical perspective. They don't understand what would practically in our day and age would mean right now, and because that would make them see that they themselves wouldn't, many of them, they wouldn't agree. They just agree right now because they call themselves Christians and they don't allow themselves to question what's written in the Bible. Because if they would question the validity of what's written in the Bible, they couldn't call themselves anymore followers of that Bible. So they would lose that identity. So because they are afraid to lose the identity, right, go rogue, right, on their own, on their quest for truth, rather than just follow what a book, an apparently holy book, although it looks black and satanic in appearance anyway, says, right? Instead of following what the letter of a book says, just think for yourself, contemplate, discern for yourself, go on your own in the quest for truth, right? Because they are scared to do that, they would rather continue to follow what the book says and close their eyes and close their heart as well to the monstrosities that are being shown openly, clearly for everybody which has a true discernment to see in that book. So they close their eyes when they see the atrocities that this God of theirs, which is no God at all, does to people, humans, animals, anything. They close their eyes and they even cherish it in their heart. They think they cherish this psychopath. Oh yeah, God did well because people didn't listen. They were degenerates. How do you know? Well, because God says so. And we trust in the word of God because that's what makes us faithful followers. And we are gaining God's grace. And of course, we want God's grace because we are so terrified of that God. Actually, we don't want, the floods or famines or diseases or whatnot upon us. So we'd better listen to that God. It's just we have to be under God's grace. See, we can't rebel against that God. We can't say anything wrong about it. So God knows what God is doing, right? All right. So God did well. Yep, He did well to kill everybody. Genocide. Yep, they were degenerates. They deserve to die. Well, does your family right now, independent of how they are, do you want to see them right bombarded and exploded? If a bomb would come over your city right now, would you just want to see their limbs splashed or ripped from their bodies just like that, just in front of your face? Or would you want to see so many children, so many people from your city just drowning while you're cruising on an ark above the waters and see everybody around oh, would you want that? Even if they are degenerates, some of them they are. How degenerate one has to be to allow that? It's the question, I think.